Okay, stop. Before you go out and buy Christmas cards this year, you need to watch this. These just may be the most beautiful cards you've ever painted. These watercolor cards may look advanced, but trust me, you can paint them today. So what are we waiting for? Let's make the most beautiful Christmas cards ever. I'll just quickly pull out some supplies that we need for these and we can get started. We of course need some watercolor paints, a paper towel, some clean water, and then some brushes. I'll be using some of my personally designed Craftamo brushes today. Let's pull out some that are a little bit more on the smaller side of things. How about the number 6 round, the number 3 round, and the number 1 rigger? Now, these brushes are going to be back in stock in just 1 or 2 weeks, just in time for the Christmas season. So make sure you sign up to be notified with the link that I'll put in the description of this video so that you'll be among the first to know when they are available. These would make a terrific gift for either yourself or a loved one. Okay, now next up, we need some watercolor paper. There are some different options here, so just pick what works best for you. First off, we can just take a normal sheet of watercolor paper and cut it down to the size you like, and then simply paint on the front of that. Or to make it more card-like and maybe save some time on cutting and measuring, you can buy 100% cotton watercolor cards that are ready-made that you can paint on, fold them in half, and then sometimes they even come with envelopes too so that you can have them ready to mail and give out right away. I have painted on both of these options and either one works great. It's just a matter of preference. For my demonstration, I'll just use a watercolor 9x12 sheet that I've cut into 4 equal parts. And just as a side note, any of the products that you do see me using today, including the ready-made watercolor cards and envelopes, I will list in the description of this video in case you'd like to look into anything further. Now, the good news for these fun little ornament cards is that creating an outline for them is super simple. All you need is something round that you can use as a template. I actually just use a cup and trace right around either the bottom or the rim of it. You'll just have to find one that's the approximate size that you like and that fills the page how you want. I think I'll just use the bottom of this cup here. Then after you've got your circle traced approximately in the center of the card, we can add the little cap on top. I don't know what the official name for this is called, but you get the idea. Then we'll draw a circle or an oval shape on top of that, and maybe a line running through like the hook or the string that hangs the ball or ornament up. Now, that is all you have to do. But if you'd like to add some embellishments to your piece, then you can add in some circle shapes for some berries, maybe some holly leaves or pine needles, or anything else you think would look good. I'm adding these onto the bottom of my drawing this time, but in a minute I'll show you how you can change this up a little bit to create a slightly different composition or look. There are a lot of possibilities. With all 3 of the ornaments I'm going to show you today, all you need is a little bit of imagination to put them together. In fact, with that being said, maybe I'll even add some fun little swirl embellishments on the face of the ornament as well, just for fun. And although you can easily come up with your own designs, I am going to put a few of my own outlines and ideas in my Etsy shop as well, so that you can just trace these onto your cards and then jump right into the fun of painting. I'll have 3 different designs available in both 4x6 and 5x7 sizes. I'll leave a link for my Etsy shop in the description of this video as well if you would find that helpful. Okay, now that we have some outline ideas, let's get to painting. The card I'm starting with here is a little bit different with the placement of the holly and berries and the pine needles, but the basic idea is still very much the same. And I actually already have some paint colors on my tray here from a different card project that I just put out a couple of weeks ago. I really liked the color scheme of those, so I think I'm just going to use those same colors for these today. But with that being said, you can absolutely paint these ornaments in whatever colors you want. Okay, now the first thing that we need to do is paint the basic circle shape of the ornament. I want to paint mine in sort of a gold color. Today I'm just going to mix up my own gold by using some raw sienna and adding just a touch of gamboge in there. This really creates a nice rich gold color that you can use with just normal paints. But another option is of course using actual gold metallic watercolor paints. I have a gold watercolor set that I really like, and I may use them for some embellishments on a different card, but I also wanted to show you how you can accomplish a very similar look without having to have special paints to do it with. For the base layer of color here, I'll be painting it wet on wet. So using the number 6 round, I'll take some clean water and just paint within that circle shape. If you have some berries or leaves overlapping it, then you can paint around those too. But if you happen to get paint on them, then that's okay. We will be painting darker colors over the top, so it shouldn't be super noticeable. Then after I have the water on here, I'll take a touch of the golden color that we mixed up and start placing that on. Now, I like to start applying the paint where the shadow side of the ball is going to be, and then I can spread that color out from there around and off to the other side a little bit. This way I can keep the shadow side a little bit darker with color. Now, if you know much about shading spherical objects, then you know that you are going to want to sort of create a highlight side, which will be on the opposite side of the shadow side. I'm really not putting any color in that highlight area. I'm just moving it around in the circle so that I can leave that highlight the brightest spot on the ball. And then to make it even more realistic looking, you can have a touch of reflected light within the shadow area. You can try to paint this in a lighter value of color for that, or if you need to, you can wet and dry your brush and then just swipe off a bit of color with the damp bristles. Or you could even just use a paper towel and dab a bit of color off. Don't worry too much about getting everything perfectly shaded though. If you have a touch of the shaded elements, it's nice, but it's definitely not mandatory. Just do the best you can. All right, I think that is close enough. I don't want to mess with it too much more or I might mess up what I have. Now, we need this to completely dry before we can paint on all the fun details, so I'm just going to set this off to the side for a minute. And since I plan to paint 3 of these cards today, I'm just going to go ahead right now and paint in the base layer color on my 2 other cards. Then I can make some better use of my time. But I am going to skip through these a little bit faster, but the technique and the color for these next 2 is going to be exactly the same as this first one. And it's kind of fun how golden the colors of these look, even though it's just a little bit of raw sienna and gamboge. I hope you are enjoying the tutorial so far. These are just fun and simple, but super beautiful in the end. If you find that you do like my painting and teaching style today, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any of my other fun and unique upcoming tutorials. Okay, good enough. I have set those other 2 cards off to the side to dry now, but I can pull out the first card once again and finish it off now that it is dry. Let's go ahead and paint in the top hook of the ornament next using the number 3 round brush. I'm going to just use that same gold color that I mixed up on my tray, but I am going to use it as a heavier, more concentrated amount this time so that it's just a little darker than the ball itself. I'll take a touch of that color and just basically outline this shape with color to get started. Then I'll wet and dry my brush off and use the damp brush to very gently start spreading some of that color throughout the rest of the area. I'll start with the left side first, and after I spread it out a little ways, I will rinse and dry my brush off again and spread it a little bit more. The more I rinse my brush as I spread the color, the more that the color is going to fade out lighter and lighter. I'll also spread a bit of that color from the right side as well, but I'm going to leave a small space in here, very light or even white, to create a highlight spot on this too. That way it just helps this appear nice and shiny. You can play around with the colors to get it just right, but that is kind of the main idea. But then I'll just take a touch of this color and the very tip of my brush and paint in the circle top and the string, and that is it for the basic ornament. Now it's time to decorate. Let's paint in the berries next. I'll just freshen up this cadmium red color that's here on my tray and once again use that small number 3 round to paint these in with. Now, because I have a bit of shading on the other parts of my ornament, I'm going to shade these berries just a little bit as well, but that is optional. If it's easier for you to just fill them in with color, by all means, go ahead and keep it simple. If you do choose to do it that way, then I might recommend maybe leaving a little small circle white highlight on the berries, and that would be good enough. But if you would like to add a touch of shading to the berries, the good news is it is pretty similar to what we just did with the top of the ornament. I'll start by taking a touch of the cadmium red and paint the outline of the berry with color. Then I'll paint a small circle within that berry to make space for the white highlight, and then I'll maybe paint half of the berry with the red paint. And then all I'm going to do to create a tiny bit of shading is wet and dry my brush and use the damp bristles to spread a tiny bit of this color throughout that other half of the berry. This is just going to naturally make it a little bit lighter in value than the other half, but if you do ever feel like there's still too much color, then you can wet and dry your brush off again and then swipe the bristles and take some of that color off. But that is really all there is to painting in these berries, so go ahead and just finish off all of them and then we'll move on. Now, actually, I did make a mistake here that I didn't realize it until it was too late, but I accidentally put the highlight on my berries on the wrong side. I should have painted them so that the highlight on the berries matched up with the side of the highlight on the ornament. But oh well, at this point, I'm just going to finish this one off just how it is, and I'll do it differently on the next one, I guess. Most people probably won't notice this mistake unless they are an artist themselves or unless they're someone that really analyzes stuff. So I'm not going to worry about it too much for right now. Just goes to show you that I still make mistakes sometimes too. Okay, great job. Next up are the holly leaves. I'm going to use some olive green paint for this, so I'll just freshen up that color a little bit on my palette here. And with these leaves, I'm not even going to worry about shading or anything. You definitely can if you want to, but probably the most I'll do with these is maybe paint some of the leaves darker and some of the leaves lighter in value than others, just to add a bit of variety. But I'm pretty much just going to fill in these shapes with color and call them good. But maybe after they're dry, we can go in there and add a vein line down the center just to add some extra detail. All right, next up, let's switch over to the number 1 rigger next. Well, you could just use a small round brush if you want to, just something that can paint nice thin lines. I love the rigger for that, but we're going to go ahead and use the same olive green paint for this and just take a touch of color and paint some nice thin pine needle lines to finish off the look of this little embellishment. Probably my biggest tip here is that I generally like to start these strokes at the base of the needle and then do a quick movement of the wrist to move that stroke outward. We generally tend to have a heavier line when we first start the stroke out, so it kind of gives the stroke a bit of gradient as far as thickness goes. All right, the last thing we need to do is add in a bit of detail on the ball itself. Now, this is also optional, and there are many different ways that you can do it if you choose to add this on. You can use a nice thin brush and some paint, metallics or other, just to paint on some details. But sometimes people find that that is difficult or even tedious to do, so another option is to simply cheat and draw them on. Now, you can use whatever you happen to have on hand, pens, markers, or I have actually even just used colored pencils, and that works great too. Really just whatever is easiest for you. I'm going to use these little flexible tip markers today because they had the colors that I was sort of looking for, but I will just draw on some fun little frills here to embellish this and make it look like it's something a little bit more special. I might even try a lighter brown on the highlight side of the ornament and a darker brown on the shadow side, just to help keep that shadow effect a little bit. Super fun. Didn't this turn out so pretty? Now, I can just pull out my other two cards and go ahead and finish them off, so stick around if you'd like to see some more ways to decorate these. And as you can see, I already have everything painted on here except for the decorations, and this time I actually think I'm going to pull out some of this metallic gold watercolor paint and see what I can do with this. I think I'd like to try some swirls or stripes on this one just to change things up a little bit. I'll use the number 3 round for this and load up my brush with color. Now, I'm lucky enough to have some different values of gold paints, so I'm going to paint darker stripes on the shadow side and then gradually move to some lighter valued gold colors on the highlight side. But if you happen to only have one shade of gold, I think that is still going to look great, and it adds a really fun shimmer to the card too. Ooh, yes, I really like how that turned out. Now, my lines are not perfect, but it still looks pretty good. Now, you probably can't see the shimmer of the metallics very good on this video, but it really does add a fun element here, and the shading of it makes the ornament even seem like it's popping off the page. All right, I'll go ahead and add in the berries next, just like we did before, but this time I am going to try to make the highlight on the same side as the highlight on the ornament. My brain must not be working quite right today though, because I feel like I need to turn my card upside down to paint it in properly. Okay, good enough. I have a few holly leaves that I will go ahead and paint in next with some olive green, and then I'll switch over to the rigger to paint in the nice thin pine needles. Awesome. Doesn't that look pretty? Really, this is the same basic idea as the first, but it's just kind of placed in here differently. I'll go ahead and finish off my third and last card for the day. I'm going to go through this one a little bit quicker though. Most of the elements on this are the same as the others, just again, arranged differently. In fact, I'm sure you can think of some really fun and different ways to embellish the ornaments as well that are even different than mine too. And I'd love to hear any of your ideas that you might have. So in the comments, tell me which one of these cards you like the best, or even a different design or a way that you think that they would be fun to decorate. And that, my friends, is it for these 3 beautiful cards. These are so fun and look so pretty, and they really aren't hard to do either. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.